We didn't get to go further than just one verse. But it was a very nice verse, very potent verse. So, let's begin now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo
Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Narayanam Namaskritam.
You can just say the English. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer their respectful obeisances on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayana, Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shrinvatam Svagata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyantastoya Bhadrani, Vedunoti Sarhitsatam. Shri Krishna is the Paramatma, the super soul in the heart of each living entity, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the heart of material desire, of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous and properly heard and chanted. So all you have to do is have a little greed to hear the message of Krishna, and your heart will be cleansed of material desires. And what do you get? Nashta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular hearing of the Bhagavatam, or the messages of Krishna, they're synonymous. By regular hearing of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, almost all that is troublesome to the heart is completely destroyed. And love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So you get your troubles removed, and what do you get instead? Love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti or bhavati naishtaki. Deep spiritual emotions of bhakti, which is love, and also service. And naishtaki means you're fixed, you're always doing. And that's your reward, that you become so cleansed that all you're doing at this point is bhakti. So this is just develop the urge to hear the message of Krishna, and this is assured of you actually, and Krishna will arrange everything. So last verse, let's begin a little punctually, because last verse we heard Kunti was glorifying the Lord of why he appeared in this world. He appeared for this reason, he appeared for that reason, for the Yadu dynasty, for his devotees in Vrindavan, for his devotees in Mathura, for all the different devotees Krishna is coming for. His devotees in the heavenly planets, the demigods, they want relief. Mother Earth wants relief, and so on. So then, it was mentioned that he appears to rejuvenate the 9 processes of Vaidhi Bhakti, which are what? First 3, at least. Shravana means what? Hearing about the Lord and His pastimes. Kirtanam is glorifying the Lord and His pastimes, and then remembering. But the whole 9 processes are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. So this is... These are the 9 main processes of bhakti. Shravanam, hearing the message of the Lord, like we just talked about. Then taking that what you heard and then start to sharing. And this will reconfirm what you've heard. Because a lot of times we hear something, goes in one ear and then out the other. Why? Because we don't take to the next process of sharing. There's a Western axiom. The best way to learn something is to what? To teach it. So if you don't share what you hear, you're not going to actually really, I would say, make concrete what you've actually heard, make solid what you've actually heard. When you share it, then it becomes solid and it becomes a conviction. And that person that you just shared it with will actually be like, hey, are you going to live up to that thing you told me? And then you start to do it. And so that will facilitate remembering, smaranam. And when you remember Krishna, then processes... like Padasevanam, you'll want to offer your obeisances before the Lord. You want to offer your obeisances before the devotees, serve the feet of the Lord in different ways. And then you'll want to do archanam, the actual worship of the Lord, offering of prasad, arati, all these things will come. Vandanam, you'll want to compose prayers, and you'll want to recite the prayers of great devotees. Like the Bhagavatam is just a ton of vandanam. We're reading the vandanam of Queen Kunti right now. And then dasyam, you'll develop a mood of wanting to become a servant. Even you may get initiated and actually take the name so-and-so Das or so-and-so Devi Dasi. And you want to identify with being a servant of the Lord. And then sakyam, over time, you'll develop a deep friendship with the Lord. And then eventually, atma nivedanam, you'll just want to give your whole soul, the whole atma, surrender it unto the Lord. So this is the process. So anyhow, she's saying that that's one of the reasons he comes is to rejuvenate these devotional services. And these are known as the Vaidhi Bhakti devotional services. We talked about that. But then she says, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or continuously do this Vaidhi Bhakti process, or take pleasures in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So eventually, you'll actually get darshan, or actually be able to see the Lord. That's what these processes eventually give you. You're able to perceive the supreme spiritual entity. Right now we have material vision of perverted vision. But ultimately, the Lord will be revealed through our following. And then eventually, Prabhupada was saying in the last purport, and this is what we had like a heavy discussion on, by developing a different condition of life, you have to change this present perverted vision by developing a different condition of life of spontaneous love of Godhead. These are at the higher rungs of what Vaidhi Bhakti will offer. And then eventually you will hopefully be attracted to what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, which is the spontaneous or the path of Raga Bhakti. But it's not cheap. It's not something, this was a discussion point me and my wife had yesterday. It's not something that, all right, well, I'm going to just start from today practicing Raga Bhakti. You actually, if one is so sincere, and actually says the only qualification to achieve Raga Bhakti, does anyone know what it is? It's in Nectar of Devotion. What? Yeah, and that is? Yeah, you just have to want it. You just have to want it very dearly. And then actually then it will be thrust upon you in different ways or another. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will assent.
You have to know what it is to want it.
Well, that's true. That's true. So Prabhupada's building us there. And it's not exactly clear at this point in the Bhagavatam at least. But if you read the Nectar of Devotion, which Prabhupada wanted his devotees to read, he elaborates very clearly. And I mean, Rupa Goswami elaborates very clearly what it is. And so anyhow, let's read text 37. Apyadyanastvam svakrite hita prabho
Yadyanastvam svakrite hit prabho
jihasasi svit suhrido nujivina
Jihasasi susihido anujivinaha
yisham nachanyad bhavata padambuja
Shanachanya damata padambuja
parayanam rajasuyojitam hasam
Rayam rajasu yojitam hasam
api if adya today na us tvam you svakrita self-executed ihita all duties prabho of my Lord jihasasi giving up svit possibly suhrida intimate friends anujivina living at the mercy of yesham of whom na nor cha and anya anyone else Bhavata, your, pada ambuja, from the lotus feet, parayanam, dependent, rajasu, unto the kings, yojita, engaged in, amhasam, enmity. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? Enmity is like all kings are, they consider us enemies. So purport, the Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. We're all dependent on someone. Like you'll see in your life, even in so many facets of our life, when we were dependent on others, it was a very hard time because you have to serve the interests of whoever you're dependent on. And if that person, which if they're in the material world, won't have those pure interests, then all of a sudden it will be an infliction upon you. So it said we're very unfortunate if we become dependent on others. That's why a Brahmin, those who take to the Brahmin, one of the vrats of a Brahmin is they never become dependent on anyone else. And they always become dependent on Brahma, or not Brahma, on Brahma, onto spirit. And ultimately the highest conclusion of Brahma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We all have to be dependent. Whether we're fortunate, we become dependent on the Lord. If we're unfortunate, we choose a living entity to become dependent on. Maybe our boss, maybe a professor, maybe this person, that person, the other person, the landlord, this, that, the other, and next thing you know, we're bound. So it says we're very it's a sign of misfortune. But the material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. And why do we become ultimately dependent? Is because we want to be independent. But ultimately, this is not possible. You cannot take a leaf from the tulsi plant. The leaf say, "Oh, I want to become independent." She can become independent, but still offer to the Lord. But still, if the leaf, and maybe the tulsi is not the greatest analogy, maybe the money plant over there, that leaf, he becomes independent. He dries up, he withers, and he's useless. But this is the material disease. I'm gonna become independent, this, that, and the other. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. We know the laws of karma, we know the laws of nature, but our scientists are trying to discover new ways to hack into, like even look at all of our technology. We're not going to be limited by time and space and all these things, and now we can call someone on the other side of town, the other side of the world, no problem. But actually, the way karma works is that these phones are destroying us in so many ways. They're destroying the attention span. They're destroying the quality of life. Who knows? They're giving physical radiation and all these crazy things. This is just one example of how when we try to abuse the laws of nature, there is a comeuppance. So beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. He's talking about this was when the space race was happening. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor. Valor, is that strength?
Courage, yeah.
Courage, yes. Valor, I think it's courage. But I will check because I need to. Yeah. I think they're like synonymous, but I think the meaning of valor is great courage in the face of danger, especially in battle. And with that will come honor and all these other things. So to work with courage, always trusting the Lord. Now where am I? I lost my... What's that? The Pandavas. Aha. Oh, at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna, but they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified, both by personal character and by physical activities. So meaning, what's that idle parasites? Not just like sitting down like, all right, I'm going to depend whatever the Lord does and I won't do anything. I'll just feed off of the mercy of the Lord. But there's no actions other than just to take. What is the giving? This is actually
Service.
yes.
Surrender.
Yeah, there's no actual bhakti for a parasite. The parasite is just a taker. Let me just extract as much as I can from this thing, that thing, the other thing. I mean, unfortunately, the tendency of the living entity in this material world is to be a parasite. And ultimately, that's maybe the destination of one who takes to such a, we see this in the workplace, there's people who are really enthusiastic about doing the job, and then there's people who just want to take as much from the company as possible or use as much of the company's time as possible to
And do as little as possible.
do as little as possible. Yes, so this is everywhere, this parasitic nature. But ultimately, what is the service being done? So they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were always engaged in service. They were all highly qualified both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is, therefore, to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatha, or without any guardian. Anatha is like Lord, without any guardian. Whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanatha, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanatha so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By the deluding power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. Very... it'll always be confusing to us, and it'll never give us what we desire. Or even if we get what we desire, it's not truly what we desire. We think, oh, I'm going to get, the most popular one is I'm going to find a mate. And then when you find the mate, you find a bunch of other things along with the mate that you weren't expecting. Because you thought, oh, the reason I want a mate is because this, and this these boxes will be checked, and maybe a few boxes do get checked. But along with the mate will come this, that, and the other thing, and it's like, oh my gosh. And I'm not saying it's not the mate's fault. It's not. It's just the nature of the material world. But there's everything is like that. If you try to find pleasure in food, then you get a whole nother slew of problems. Like every disease is pretty much due to what you eat. So if you try to find pleasure in intoxication, this, that, and the other, consequences are there. This is the perplexity and the undesirable nature of the material world.
So the bottom line is that we're spirit soul, and spirit can't be satisfied by material things.
That is the bottom line, and that's pretty much why this can never make us happy, because we're trying to jump out of water like a fish, trying to jump out of water, and in its unnatural state find pleasure on the land. Let me give the fish oil massages, or let me give the fish, here's a beautiful other fish, but the fish needs to breathe. So this is the nature of the spirit. It needs actual spiritual happiness, spiritual joy. So the Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us in 7:19 that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. That is the sign of a Mahatma, or a great soul. All the members of the Pandava family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavat Purana, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity, But all of us are always in such a condition, and the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. So Prabhupada makes a very strong statement. We're all dealing with enmity. No matter what we do, somebody will want to trounce on our parade. No matter what you're doing in this material world, somebody will try to oppose you. So, Michael, Craig, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I hope you find a dependence on the Lord today. And we'll hopefully see you guys.
It's ironic that we're ultimately always dependent on Krishna.
Yes.
It's just we want to be more directly dependent.
Exactly, and we don't want to be in the illusion of trying to run away from Krishna to be independent. So, Jai, thank you guys for coming. So, okay, we'll go for 10 more minutes more because Piyush also has to go, and so we'll let Parth, get on with his day as well. It is not only So let's do the next verse. Kevayam nama rupabhyam Syadubhi saha pandava Bhavato darshanam yarhi Shrishikhanam iveshitu. K, who are? Vayam, we. Namarupabhyam, without fame and ability. Yadubi, with the Yadus. Saha, along with. Pandava, and the Pandavas. Bhavata, your. Adarshanam, absence. Yarhi, as if. Rishikhanam, of the senses. Eva, like. Ishitu, of the living being. Translation. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Purport. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Sri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great king Yudhishthir, who is morality personified. And the Yadus are undoubtedly great allies, but without the guidance of Lord Krishna, all of them are non-entities, as much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living beings are always dependent, and the ultimate dependable object is the Lord himself. We may therefore invent, by our advancement of material knowledge, all sorts of counteracting material resources. But without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be. Parth, this is good for you because you're in the process of inventing things, aren't you? So, yes, without guidance of the Lord, this will all end in a fiasco. So let your life be in this guidance. And we all need this. You look at the great devotees. Even look at now one of the political, some of the political people of the world. They're right now at least making a good show of being like godly. But if they actually felt that, I don't know. Maybe I can't tell you he doesn't feel connected to God, or she doesn't feel connected to God. But if they actually feel that, they'll understand that the reason I'm in this position is by God's mercy. And actually God is the one, or Krishna is the one, the Supreme Lord is the one guiding everything. It's not by my intellect, it's not by my skills, it's not by my looks or my charm. All of these, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability in man. All ability is through the mercy of the Lord. So naturally we're dependent on the Lord. So why not directly turn our consciousness to the Lord, which is Krishna consciousness, that's what we're trying to do. And actually let the Lord guide us. Let the Lord's servant guide us. Let the devotees guide us. Let the acharyas guide us. Let the Lord's dear incarnations of Kali Yuga, the bestowers of mercy, Gauranitai, guide us. Then we'll all the things you want, fame, this, that, and the other, it's only given by the Lord. So why not wholeheartedly go for it? Whether it is, a lot of us may strive to be family men. Trust me, if you're going to be a family man, you better evoke the mercy of the Lord. That's the truth. You're not going to find success in your family life. Actually, in Kali Yuga, it says only great heroes find success in family life. In 12th canto, if a man if a man just has his family still together, he's considered like a great man in society. But that was just like common sense in the past. In the past times, it was just common, oh yeah, you stay together with your family and you treat your family all nicely. But only great heroes in Kali Yuga actually could stay together with their family and have a family that works together cooperatively. So actually, everything, no matter what your ambition is, no matter what your endeavor is, let the Lord guide you and be receptive to serving the Lord with all of your resources, with your relationships, with your career, with your education, with your money, with your all of these things. Even your time, especially your time. We do so much things with our time and we just want to sit there and waste our time. No, use your time for the Lord's service in some way. In some way. Find a way. There's so many enjoyable activities to do in devotional service. So many enjoyable activities. So find the service that you like. I see with you guys, I know which one of you is inclined to do this. Like the other day I was considering Piyush for making granola with Tanmay, and then they all looked in a panic. And so I said, you know what, maybe this isn't the ideal service for them. But you know what, I know if I give Michael the task, even though it took him 4 hours to make the granola, I knew he would be enthusiastic to want to do that type of task. And so on, everyone has a different nature and inclination, but everyone can find a service. We're all dependent on the Lord anyway. So find your service. Let's read one more verse. Neyam shobhishyate tatra
Neyam shobhishyate tatra
Nyate danim gadadhara
Vedani gadadhara
Tvatpader ankita bhati
Tvatpadera nikita bhati
Svalakshana vilakshitai
Lakshana vilakshitare
Not Iyam, this land of our kingdom Shobhishyate will appear beautiful. Tatra, then, Yatha, as it is now. Idanim, how? Gadadhara, oh Krishna. I wonder, what is it? Gada is mace, one of the beholder of the mace. Is that what Gadadhara means? I think so. Tvat, your. Padai, by the feet. Ankita, marked. Bhati is dazzling. Svalakshana, your own marks. Vilakshitai, by the impressions. O Gadadhar, Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful, but when you leave it will no longer be so. Purport, there are certain particular marks on the feet of the Lord which distinguish the Lord from others. The marks of a flag, thunderbolt, and instrument to drive an elephant, umbrella, lotus, disc, etc. are on the bottom of the Lord's feet. These marks are impressed upon the soft dust of the land where the Lord traverses. The land of Hastinapur was thus marked while Lord Sri Krishna was there with the Pandavas, and the kingdom of the Pandavas thus flourished by such auspicious signs. Kunti Devi pointed out these distinguished features and was afraid of ill luck in the absence of the Lord. This is one of the ornaments of the Lord, that his feet are marked very auspiciously, and when he steps in like the sand or the ground, he makes an impression that's so beautiful and so auspicious with his beautiful marks. Even now, if you were to read your palms and your feet, which is an astrological tool, they find someone greatly fortunate will have all kinds of fortunate marks upon the hands and the feet. So obviously the Lord is the most fortunate, so what must his hands and feet be consisted of? So she's pointing this out. Yes, so become dependent on the Lord. She's showing her complete dependence on the Lord, does not want him to leave in any circumstance. Us ourselves, we might get contact with the Lord or the Lord's devotee or the Lord's place, and, we may not be able to especially in our neophyte stage, we may not be able to appreciate the Lord's mercy coming down upon us in such connection with Him until we leave. I was on the phone with Rishi last night. And Rishi, as anyone would, he was struggling with being alone. He was struggling with not having devotees around him and being held accountable by the devotees. It's so much easier once you're kind of alone, and if you're not really fixed up, it's so easy to fall into less and less ideal situations due to the nature of, if we're only associating with those who are in the illusions of the material world, which is 99.99% of people. If that's all our association is, then guess what? What's going to happen to us? Their consciousness will very much rub off on us, and we're not going to be able to stay strong. That's why all of the yogis and things like this, they recommend, become a hermit, renounce the world. It's just going to pull you away from the goal. But the bhakta is not like that. The karma yogi is not like that. They believe in associating with the devotee, associating with and serving the high class servants of the Lord, and then this will bless them, and this will rub off on them, serving the saintly. So ultimately, this has to be, and this was kind of what I was telling Rishi. I was like, you got to do the 5 main processes, chanting Hare Krishna, Nam Sankirtan being number 1. But, hearing of Bhagavatam regularly. I was telling him to continue listening to Bhagavatam. Maybe if he wants to listen to our Bhagavatam, that would be maybe nice. He's going to also, and do Sadhu Sangha, and he was lamenting, well, there is not much. There's 2 devotees in here. And so we'll hop online on Tuesday nights. We have a class of Mother Nidra. So he told me he's off on Tuesday, so he's going to start joining us for Tuesday nights, which is very sweet. So
Today's today, right?
what?
Today's Tuesday.
Today is Tuesday. So tonight. Yeah, we do it every Tuesday. You're welcome to join. So hopping in with the devotees and getting the sadhu sangha, that's so necessary. And then doing some archana worship. He's offering at home. I told him to do some arati as well. And then last, sorry, Piyush will end. And then last is paying reverence to the Dham, associating with the devotees. I mean, if he goes back to India, he's going back to India. I told him to go to the Juhu or the Chowpatty temple. He's going for a week's time due to a wedding. So, and to go to the Lord's place, even if he comes to Syracuse, the Lord is here, Satchisiddha Nitai is here, and you guys are in their midst, but we may forget. Unfortunately, we do forget. I forget, and I live here with them. Serve them even. I'm supposed to be. So anyhow, we need to become dependent on the Lord. We have to do these main processes of depending on the Lord, and everything will be wonderful. But as soon as the Lord leaves, and Kunti is recognizing now, we're doing more junior services. Our archanam, our chanting, our reading of Bhagavatam, our hearing of Bhagavatam. It's very, it's in the junior stage in comparison to Kunti and the Pandavas who are directly associating with Krishna, So she's doesn't want to lose that at anything. She achieved perfection of existence. The Lord is her intimate relative, friend, intimate associate. And now it appears he's leaving her. So she doesn't want to lose that for anything. And so, like this, we also should cling on to whatever devotional relationship the Lord has manifested in our life and strive not to lose it, and only to increase this. So anyway, I wish you all that you have an increasing of your relationship with the Lord. You form a firm dependence on the Lord, because that's all you can be dependent on. And you're much less fortunate if you're dependent on anyone else in this material world, except maybe the Lord's devotee. Definitely the Lord's devotee. If you're dependent on the intimate servant of Bhagavan, which we do, this is our process to surrender onto a teacher who's intimately connected with the Lord. It's called the Guru. Then we are most fortunate. So, but anyone else, we'll be very misfortunate. So anyway, thank you all. Hare Krishna. Continue on, carry on, and we'll see you all soon. Hari Bol.